Strangeland by Wormwood Studios has been about 10 years in the making, and by the time you're watching this video is currently out. And developer was kind enough to give me a press key, and what we have here is a kind of very classic point-and-click adventure game, but really harkens back to some of the creepier, more disturbing, well, not so much disturbing, but unnerving aspects of 90s horror games. So if games or names like Sanitarium, Phantasmagoria, or I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream sound interesting to you, then Strangeland may be right up your alley. So our story is that we are a mysterious stranger here who has awakened in the land called Strangeland, where a beautiful woman keeps tossing herself to her death in this well right here. And it's up to us to figure out just what is going on. And of course, if you can hear the voice, that is Abe Goldfarb doing I think he basically plays like 2 or 3 different characters in this game. But as I said a minute ago, Strangeland definitely feels more like an older style point-and-click adventure game. And if you're kind of used to more of the, I don't want to say squeaky clean, but more like G-rated adventure games that we've seen these days, then this one may be an interesting throwback for you. Now, while the game itself doesn't really, go heavy into M-rated territory, but it does have some very unusual and weird imagery that will pop up. And I would say this is not a game you want to be playing with your kids. If you played Watchet Eyes' Unavowed, that came, I believe that was 2019, maybe 2020, if that imagery was too much for you, then Strangeland I think may be a little bit above that. But our gameplay, as I said, this is point-and-click adventure. You're going to be going around, talking to people, showing and using various items, and hopefully getting through the game's many puzzles. Now, 2 very interesting aspects of Strangeland. First is that you can die, or I should say, quote-unquote, die in this game. And while that will happen probably quite often, especially when you're trying to figure out what is going on, there is no permanent death. There are no fail states in Strangeland. You see, by the fact that we're in this strange world where death has no meaning, well, that means that you can just keep dying and coming back for more. Now, the story itself is very interesting, and I'm trying to only show the very first area of the game for spoiler reasons, but there's definitely this sense of, I think, rawness, as I said earlier in this video, that this is not a story that's meant to be, happy-go-lucky and it's going to end with, happily ever after. And when I interviewed developer Mark about it, and in interviews he said that this is meant to be a very personal story. And as with the game being published by Watchet Eye, there's also hours of commentary, developers' thoughts, and a lot more information for people wanting to know more behind the design and inspiration for Strangeland. Now, with that said, the other aspect that's kind of special with Strangeland is that there are several puzzles in this game that can be solved or approached different ways, based on essentially the order that you've been moving around and what items you currently have in your inventory. I know of one puzzle in particular that occurs in the first part where you can make it easier using an item, but you can still complete the puzzle without needing to do that. And it's definitely a very clever way of allowing multiple skill levels to approach things. And I don't know how many puzzles in Strangeland can be solved that way. And as you've seen so far, the art goes for that very kind of detailed look. Again, very 90s style, I think, can describe Strangeland. So, with that said, of course, what about the puzzles? And I won't be showing them in this video again for obvious reasons, but The puzzles in Strangeland, I would say, fall in the moderate to maybe like slightly higher than that in terms of their complexity. This does not get anywhere near the same levels as 90s adventure games and some of the more infamous examples. And there is a hint system that makes use of the payphone in the main hub that you saw a few minutes ago. For myself, I managed to get through most of the game. There was one part that I was stuck in, and I think that was more of a breakdown in the logic of how things are described than kind of a puzzle itself. So, with that said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I do want to talk about a few nitpicks with this design, and where Strangeland may fall a little short for either newcomers or expert adventure game fans. And now for a quick thank you to our current Patreon supporters. And if you're interested in my books on design, they are available at most major retailers. 20 Essential Games to Study is for first-time developers looking to be inspired, and the Game Design Deep Dive series covers the history and philosophy of major genres, with horror coming later in 2021. Part of the challenge of developing Strangeland has been trying to balance things for new and expert adventure game players, and I feel that it doesn't quite hit the mark in both aspects. While the onboarding is acceptable in Strangeland, it does still is built around the assumption that you have played a lot of adventure games before. And I was surprised, despite having like on-screen prompts and UI guides like that there was nothing about how to combine items. And if you don't already know how to do that using the UI, you're going to get stuck in a few puzzles, as the game surprisingly doesn't tell you how to do that. Now, in terms of length, I played this, I think it took me roughly like 2.5 to 3 hours, give or take. Like I said, there was one part that I was stuck in that I think it was more of a breakdown the UI. And like how if I clicked on one thing, it did this, but then if I clicked on it a second time in like a slightly different position, it worked. But the puzzles did feel right. They're all built in universe. And with the universe being so weird, of course strange, it means you don't have to worry about too much in terms of outside knowledge to play this game. And I don't want to spoil the story again, but it does definitely do something interesting with this kind of telling, and it's going to end, I think, in a way that's going to have people, I think, very emotional about where it ends up going. There's one part that involves like a quote-unquote like boss fight that I thought was very well done, and again, I can't say anything more without going to spoiler territory. But overall, I did end up enjoying Strangeland. Again, this is a game that it really has that different feel to it. And despite being published by Wadget Eye, it also, I think, would be a different kind of experience compared to the Blackwell games, Unavowed, and so on. But I'll definitely be curious to hear what people think about this one, especially if you are, again, either new to adventure games, or this is, your many time around the roller coaster, I guess. Pun intended, that time. So, with that said, we're going to wrap up this review here. I would again like to thank the developer for giving me a press key, and you'll find links to my interview with him as well as to the various social media in the description down below. As always, if you are a developer working on a game and you'd like me to take a look at it for the channel, please get in touch, and be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon link down below. Come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where examine the art and science of games. Until next time, this has been Strangeland.